Hello, my name is Dexia, and these are my notes for speech 2. So, roughly around 2% of the United States population is transgendered. And when we're talking about transgender, we're talking about transgender, gender non-conforming, and non-binary people. Now, when we think about 2%, we're thinking that's a small number. But in reality, in the United States, 2% is 6.8 million people. And these people's rights to gender-affirming care have been limited, restricted, and banned during these years, and it's caused great damage to these individuals. And when people think about these damages, they think it's simply just a butthurt feeling about hearing no, but it runs way deeper than that. One of the main things we're looking at that is being affected by these limitations is their mental health. Now, when we're talking about their mental health, it's usually gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia. So they do not like what they see when they look at a mirror, and they do not feel at home in their bodies. So when people realize that there's limitations and barriers to get these cares that should be easily accessible, they lose hope that they can one day feel at home in their body, and they can one day feel happy and content with who they are. And when we're talking about these gender affirming cares, we're usually talking about hormone therapies and gender affirming surgeries. So mostly these limitations have been forced upon children because people think that children are not capable of making these decisions for themselves. And I came across an NBC News interview with the parents of trans teen youth. And the parent's name is Aaron Jennings, and he says that when his daughter realized that the access to these cares were limiting and would be hard to achieve, they had no will to live, and she didn't see a point in life. And that is truly just heartbreaking, because these things are essential for these people to live, and people think that it's just a choice that they just want to change themselves, but it's truly something they need and not just something they want. So again, these laws are being forced upon children that aren't taken seriously because they are deemed to not be fit to make these decisions, but they know themselves better than anyone else can, and they know what they need, not what they want, what they need. So one of the limitations we're coming across is insurance companies not covering aid for these cares. So that would be providing funds for aid in hormone therapies and gender affirming surgeries. So when it comes to the trans youth, that's usually when we'll see the hormone therapies, because we'll be seeing a lot of puberty blockers to try to prevent the puberty that they do not want to come across, and will prevent having to do a lot of these gender affirming surgeries that could be prevented by just doing puberty blockers at a younger age. And things like estrogen are coming up to $200 monthly if not covered by aid, and $200 a month may not seem like a lot to you, but $200 a month is a lot to somebody that does not have money, and these things are essential as food to these people. So, and that was reported by HMP Global Learning Network. And for adults, usually the care that we're looking at is these gender affirming surgeries. Now, when people think about these surgeries, they usually think of them as just plastic surgery, so they're not covered by aid because they're plastic surgery, so there's something you want. But these are things that these people need at times, because these gender affirming surgeries are what gonna make them be able to wake up in the morning, look at themselves in the mirrors, and be content with the way that they are living. And these surgeries can go for thousands of dollars like any other surgery typically would, and these aids are being diminished as time goes by because they are not seen as essential, and they truly are that essential. And another thing that we're looking at that's being affected by these restrictions and bans are their physical health. So one of the things that we're looking at is their desperation to be more comfortable in their body. And these desperations come to them taking things into their own hands. So this would usually be body alterations that they can do themselves. So one of the main examples I'm going to come across is binding. And binding is safe in moderation. But if you know about the queer community or just the trans community in general, you know binding is not done in moderation, because it is simply something that is just not done in moderation, because they cannot come to take that binder off and come to face with a body that it isn't them. So people, when they do not have the proper binding equipment, usually will bind in unsafe ways that isn't a binder, because binders can go up to $30 to $100, and it is just a cost that not a lot of people can afford. So people usually bind with multiple sports bras or with elastic bands, and even regular binding can be harmful. And if not done in moderation, which it mostly isn't, will cause further health concerns like back issues, scarring, infections, and just a lot of health concerns later on, because these people aren't getting the care that they need from the other types of cares, so they resort to the only thing that they can do themselves, which is essentially going to hurt them. And they need to do this because it's the only thing that can help them. And another form of self-injury or body modification would be NSSI, which is non-suicidal self-injury. And I will not really go further into detail about the type of harm that they cause themselves, because it's just very triggering. But they usually commit these types of acts because they see something about themselves that they can't change, and they're just truly upset with it, and they will do anything possible to make themselves feel better, and it's usually harming themselves to feel better. And all of these things can be prevented if there wasn't an age limit on things, a doctor's note needed to do certain things, and various barriers to achieve something that should be easily achievable. So trans rights aren't a luxury, it simply is a right. So the consequences have to be faced by trans people, and it just negatively impacts another minority group,